Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing. It's Friday. It's a happy Friday on the 27th of February 2026. Tony, how are you doing this morning? And happy Friday to you.
I'm very well, Ryan. A wee morale boosting win in Germany to take you to Govan on Sunday. So yeah, to me that victory wasn't totally unexpected. I'd said to my father last night, and I got my prediction bang on. I told him I could see Celtic winning 1-0 just because the damage was done in the first half, but the first leg, sorry. But I thought Celtic would give a good account of themselves. So yeah, happy Friday, as they say, Ryan. So delighted with that.
Absolutely, and a couple of performances have given Martin O'Neill food for thought ahead of Sunday's game at Ibrox, that massive Glasgow derby against Rangers. But before we talk about on-field issues and on-field debates, we need to talk about some off-field stuff as well. Not sure about the timing in terms of the announcement from Willie Haughey, but it seemed as if during the game or just before the game started, there was the announcement on Go Radio. Willie Haughey made an appearance on Go Radio regarding the Celtic season ticket alliance. He has last night pledged to purchase £10 million worth of shares in Celtic Football Club. The one stipulation is that he receives backing from some of the supporters. At the current share price, a £10 million investment, which would cover all 54,000 season ticket holders, would equate to 5.26%. By comparison, Dermot Desmond's percentage is 34.6% of Celtic. So you can just see how much sway and power the largest shareholder at the club, Dermot Desmond, has at the club at this present moment in time. In that interview, in what was on Go Radio last night, he was saying, over the last few months, I've been looking at what's been going on, and if you've not got harmony in a business, then you've got no chance. Some of the stuff has been a distraction over the past few months. He talked specifically about the tennis ball protest, the boycotting protest as well. After last week and the fantastic atmosphere and all of that to be killed within 2 minutes, I think we need to come up with a better solution about how the fans can get a voice. I'm going to look at setting something up. I believe that the 54,000 season ticket holders are the core of that. They're the heartbeat of Celtic. I'm going to set up a thing called the Celtic Season Ticket Alliance. I want the 54,000 people, whether you're in corporate, the director's box, whether you're in the standing section. I'm going to set up an office, a small secretary. I will pay for it. I'm not looking for money from anybody. I want those 54,000 individuals. All we need is your email address or your mobile number. You get a number and you'll be part of that season ticket alliance. For every 10,000 fans that join this, I will put £2 million in to buy shares for this trust. If everybody joins, then it's 10 million or just over that figure. Let's get harmony, let's get the Green Brigade back in the stadium, and let's get everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. I'm going to get a Celtic legend to front it over the next few weeks. There will be more and more details about how people can become a part of this. Now, this news was broke last night just before the Celtic game, the Celtic Stuttgart game. We've had quite a bit of time to digest the news from Willie Haughey. What's your overall opinion or your first thoughts on the plans that he set out with regard to the season ticket alliance?
The end game is to give fans a representation, a voice on the board, right? That's the end game, isn't it? Here, I think it's a
Yes, and he
positive
did
start
mention
line.
that, Tony.
Yeah, so I think anything that I think you have to have a base start from where you're going to try and unite the factions. It seems to me it's very similar to what the Celtic Supporters Limited are all about as well. So I would hate for it to become a Judean People's Front of Judea situation here, right? I wouldn't want that. I would love to see the factions come together, but I think Willie Haughey and the likes of David Lowe, they'll know each other. They move in those circles, so they will speak to each other, and I'm sure they will, if it's for the common good of Celtic, they will unite at some point, or they will see merits in this. No, I need to fully digest everything that he's saying, but in terms of looking at it, and we all want to sing from the same hymn sheet. As a collective, Celtic are better when there's unity from the boardroom on the part, management, players, the fans. They are when that's in unison. they're an unstoppable force. And at the minute, it's fragmented and it's fractured. I think it's a good start for discussions to get us to a point, Ryan, where we are united. I think that's what it is. It's a start. I think everybody needs to do their due diligence on it all. I think the major plus for the Celtic supporters is that it isn't going to cost them any money. I think lots of people will see that and think, okay, let's see what he has to say. So, yeah, for me, moving forward, I think we spoke off air and you were saying it's a start as well. Well, we were both in agreement with that. Something has to give here. But as long as I say it doesn't become fractured and splintered, like the pastiche that I said there, Judean People's Front and the People's Front of Judea, Monty Python stuff, I wouldn't want that. And you've kind of seen that this season with Celtic supporters being fractured and split. And I spoke about that Celtic cannibalism, the taking chunks out of each other. It's just not been pleasant to watch.
Yeah, it really hasn't, and the club needs unity, but it also needs to be functioning properly on all fronts, as many people have been saying over the past few weeks and months. For me, the status quo cannot continue the way it's going. The relationship has been fractured. It's been fractured for quite a bit of time, but it's got to a real breaking point at the moment between the fans, or some fans, and the board, which saw people actively boycott a game against Dundee earlier this month. It saw tennis balls get thrown onto the pitch against Stuttgart. The constant statements that come out from the Celtic fans collective as well, it would point towards disharmony at the football club. That, coupled with the way that things are transpiring on the pitch this season, off the pitch with the AGM too, this can't continue. And forgive me for having a little bit of optimism when things like this come through, but it's badly needed at the moment, and that's my personal opinion coming through. There needs to be something to cling on to.
I think you have optimism, Ryan, because you've probably never seen it as bad in your Celtic supporting life, have you? With the way protests and various things have manifested this season. I don't think you in particular have witnessed it as bad as that and as toxic as that. Those of us of an older ilk, I don't mean to go all Celtic down you, can remember the 90s, right? That's not your fault because you weren't born at that time. That's fine. But I think in terms of levels of toxicity, this is probably the worst it's ever been for yourself and people of supporters of your generation. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, and Willie Haughey on Go Radio last night spoke, and I would urge anybody that wants to know more about this campaign from Haughey to listen to the full 18 minutes that was put on Go Radio's YouTube channel. It's actually in the comments as well, I believe, to the original tweet on X, so you can watch the whole 18 minutes to get a full context as to what was being said by the former Celtic director, the successful businessman, on what he plans for this. He does not want to become the chairman of this movement. He doesn't want to have a place on the Celtic board. He's already had that. I believe he was a director in the past. He doesn't want to be a part of that. He just wants to see this as a donation to the Celtic support to bring back harmony, because that's the overarching feeling, is that he wants to bring harmony, some form of harmony, and he feels that the best way to do that is by giving the supporters a voice in the boardroom. I completely agree with him. Also agree with him in the fact that the boardroom needs a bit of young blood in there too, some younger fans in there that will bring in some of the issues that are affecting, not just the older fans who are well represented, or maybe they're not represented in the boardroom. Maybe those same opinions aren't there, but to bring in some fresh blood into the place and to reinvigor the club, a club that's kind of lost its reinvigoration or lost its vigour in the past couple of years. So I agree with him in those points. It's a start. I want to see more than this, but I'm choosing to be optimistic in this rather than being pessimistic.
I think you and I would agree. It's a club that needs a root and branch clear out in every department. But you have to start somewhere. And what I will say about Willie Haughey is a bona fide Celtic fan. So yeah, he's a businessman. Yeah, he's a corporate man. But he's also got a Celtic heart and soul. So
Fair enough.
whilst his dealings in his everyday world are in finance, he has said to himself he doesn't want to be the chairman, because I think he realises he can't remove himself from the emotional decisions that would have to be taken in a role like that. And I think he cares more about the club and where it's going. So I think that I'm all for people like that who have their foot in both camps, Ryan, because I've said before, I don't know how to run a football club in a business sense. So we need guys like that. We need guys like David Lowe. We need their involvement. If they don't want to be involved in the board per se, we need them as sounding boards and people who can advise others and people of that ilk to be involved at that level. And but you also need guys who are supporters as well. And I'm not saying because they've got so many millions in the bank, be frivolous and spend millions of pounds on players. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like so the last two windows, when you've let two particular managers down, I think if you've got people on that board who have the club's best interests at heart as well and their supporters, then they might make emotional decisions too in terms of, helping out a manager like Brendan Rodgers, helping out a manager like Martin O'Neill. And as I say, I'm not saying being frivolous and scattercashing, but help them be as successful as they can on the park. And I think guys like Willie Haughey accept that and realise that as well. And there's a big supporting element about Willie Haughey that I do like. There's a corporate and business and finance element to him as well. Again, I'll leave that up to the individual to do their due diligence and make up their own mind on various things on that, But I think these are the kind of people we need around this club, Ryan, because we have lost our way. We've lost our identity, both on and off the park. And I've said before, Martin O'Neill's the glue that's holding all of this together because he's a bona fide Celtic supporting the club legend. And, so again, he's another one who has to be involved. If this managerial tenure comes to an end in the summer, Martin O'Neill can't walk away from this football club. He's got too much to offer and too much to give. And call it director of football role, call it some other role, but he has to stay there because you have to tap into that knowledge and that wisdom. So I think there are people out there like all Willie Haughey's, as I said, who are willing to get involved. So we now have to take this as a base start to draw those people in to see if we can, as Willie Haughey says, unite the factions. And that's where the problem has been with Celtic this season. There's factions, Ryan. And when you have factions pulling against each other, it doesn't augur well for a business to run harmoniously, both on and off the park.
One thing I would hope is that those factions can come together for this common goal at bringing Celtic supporters, and that's what he's talking about. It doesn't matter whether you're in a corporate box, whether you're in the standing section, whether you're in the North Stand, the main stand, the Jock Stein stand, the Lisbon Lions stand. You can join this and be a part of something, and potentially give your voice to something.
Yeah.
Now I know that it's only 5% of shares if the full season ticket amount or the volume of season ticket holders all sign up for this, but it's a start and it's better than what is currently going on at the moment. So I'm willing to take the optimistic side of this rather than the pessimistic side that I feel that I've been putting into a lot of things this season. That I think that's because just of the way that's just been the way the season's been, where it's been very much a roller coaster, plenty of ups and downs, probably more downs than ups, to be honest with you. I'm choosing to take the positive side of this. He said in the short term he wants to bring harmony, and then in the long term potentially he could get one of the representatives for this alliance onto the board. To bring supporters' concerns. I think that's an idea that's been spoke about for many a year. Bringing a fan representative onto the board, someone who is independent of the club, who can act as a representative and bring forth fans' concerns. An actual bona fide fan onto the board who can highlight all of these concerns. That's something that I would like to see, even more so than, or just as much, if not more so than the shares, is actually having a fan representative, so that the board and the hierarchy can hear the actual concerns that the day-to-day supporter has.
That's the boardroom utopia that Celtic supporters have wanted for a long time. But how sad is it, Ryan, that your default position has been to err on the negative of everything this season? You know, that tells you where we are in the state of Celtic as a football club. So, you know, for once you're saying that you want to be positive. So, yeah, and I think a lot of Celtic fans feel the same as you. They need something to cling to here. You know, and that, again, that's been a utopian outlook for lots of Celtic fans for a long, long time. Ever since the Whites and the Kellys were there, that dynasty, as I refer to as that Minging dynasty, which thankfully came to an end in 1994.
I understand the reference, Tony.
Yeah, I know you do. Listen, I wasn't trying to be smart. I know you would get it in the fine. You know, so in that, when Fergus came in, he swept that away. You know, so I think Celtic fans have always wanted one of their own on the Celtic board. Just various regimes have been reluctant to and have resisted that. But I think, you know, everything progresses, doesn't it? You move on in life, in every kind of walk of life, business as well. And I think it's coming. Don't know when that will be, but I think you have to embrace the future and understand that having a Celtic fan representative on the board is will happen. It'll happen in both you and I lifetime, Ryan. And I think that'll be a wonderful move forward for Celtic and their supporters, as long as we don't argue as to who that person is, but I'm sure we will. But we'll have to do a due diligence process and possibly have elections for that. But yeah, I think that's something that Willie Haughey sees as imperative. And I don't think he's the only one. I think many Celtic supporters, as you say, from whatever walk of life, see that as imperative and a big part of the future, because you just have to look at the way things off the park this season have gone. And as I say, it's been joyless at times watching Celtic this season, especially off the park. And I don't know about you, it's not a Celtic I recognise at the minute, but I want the joy back. Remember Neil Lennon famously said, "Bring the thunder back." I'm saying I want the joy back at Celtic Park, and I want the joy back in supporters' faces. I remember the joy that we had when Martin O'Neill was around first time, managerially, and I'd like to think that's something that could be recaptured with the right people in place. Again, I'm the eternal optimist and the eternal dreamer, Ryan. People will say I'm also a bit of a balloon. That's fair enough. But it's just the way I think about my football club. And I don't think that's something that is impossible to achieve again.
Listen, guys, if you like what we do on the Celtic Way and you want to support us, you can hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. It's completely free. You'll get notified when we go live with pre-match videos, post-match videos, as well as expert interviews, and the morning briefings when they come along at 10 a.m. Monday to Friday. All you need to do is hit that subscribe button. If you want to subscribe to the YouTube, if you want to subscribe to the website rather, you can do so on www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe and get involved. There's plenty on there already on the Willie Haughey stuff. The game last night, which we've hardly spoke about, Tony, we'll get onto that in a wee minute, as well as everything else to do with Celtic. It's a busy place at the moment in the Celtic Way. Get involved at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Tony, your column is on there as well. We'll speak about that just before we finish the podcast. Football without the fans is absolutely nothing. Those were those famous words. And that was the case last night as well. Watching the game from my house, watching it on TNT Sports, you could see the fans enjoy his celebrations despite elimination from the Europa League last night. It was a 4-2 defeat on aggregate, but Celtic won on the night, 1-0. against Stuttgart, it was an early goal within 29-30 seconds. We need to look at the stopwatch for that one to see when exactly Luke McCowan scored, but it was within 30 seconds that he'd made the breakthrough. Unfortunately, Celtic couldn't get any more goals, but they kept a clean sheet. A big part of that was due to the performance of Viljami Sinisalo in between the sticks for Celtic. He was talking after the game saying that he was ready if called upon for the Glasgow derby. Tony, I'll put it to you simply and straightly. Should Viljami Sinisalo be keeping his place in between the sticks when Celtic travel to Ibrox on Sunday?
In a word, yeah. Of course he should. Listen, he's played at Ibrox before, Ryan. Played last season. So it's not new. So I think lots of people would be worried if it was going to be his first outing at Ibrox, but he's been there before, and I think he even spoke about objects being thrown at him the last time he was there.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy knows what it's all about, the cauldron. He wouldn't freeze in that. I just think you have to take Kasper Schmeichel out the fire at the minute. And I think he did well. He did really well last night. Viljami Sinisalo, knowing what he had to deal with. He was beaten by one shot, wasn't he? Low to his left. But we'll keep that. Was it? Low to his right. Was it low to his right or left? His left, wasn't it?
Don't put me on the spot with that, Tony. I think it's to the right, but I'm not sure.
Low to his right, wasn't it? Sorry, yeah, you're low to his right. But yeah, listen, I think that came through. Trusting he was unsighted, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But yeah, I've no qualms about Sinisalo playing. Gave the manager food for thought. In terms of the win, it was a morale-boosting win. How ironic that Celtic get their first ever win in Germany, yet they bow out of the tournament, having made a rickets of it in the first leg. So yeah, that's fine. But I was just pleased with the performance, Ryan. Listen, if you're asking me what we do, Ryan, I'm going 3-5-2. I'm going 3 centre backs, and I'm going 5 in the middle, and I'm having my width coming from Araujo and Sirachi, and Permanent, and McGregor, the Ox, and possibly McCowan. And I want Iheanacho up front on Sunday. Just think there's a bit of devilment about Iheanacho that give us what you've got, and if you have to go off, so be it. After an hour or even 45, we need to do something. Ibrox on Sunday, and I'm going Tierney, Scales, and I'm not too sure about Dane Murray. So we shall see. Permanent one from Dane Murray, and So
if we're talking, Tony, if we're talking about, in my opinion, if we're talking about last night, Tony, I think Dane Murray was one of the best players in the park.
Listen,
I think.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. But I think a lot of pressure was off, Ryan, because I don't think Stuttgart were too fussed. Had Celtic been trailing 2-1 and then scored, I think you'd have seen it. They were 4-1 up, 4-2 up and cruising. And, I think you might have seen a different Stuttgart had Celtic got a second goal. But listen, Matt, that's my thoughts on Sunday in terms of personnel, but you talk about people playing themselves into contention. You've mentioned Dane Murray there. So yeah, I'm wing backing it. I'm 5 in the midfield, Ryan, and my width's coming from Sirachi and Araujo, who Sirachi again was excellent, and I've not got a bad word to say about Araujo since he arrived. So and I'm going 3 centre backs and take it from there. And I still, as I say, I want Iheanacho up front as well.
Yeah, Araujo will be fully rested. Colby Donovan played last night, and then Anthony Ralston came on in the second half. I thought that was good management as well by Martin O'Neill, because Colby Donovan had a really tough assignment against Jamie Llewellyn, if I can say that correctly, who beat him a couple of times for pace, and he picked up a booking late on in the first half. I'm glad that he took him out of the firing line after 10 minutes of the second half. Tony Ralston did okay, apart from maybe being caught for that goal, which ended up being disallowed due to offside, which would have caused a bit of a furore if it had stood, given the fact that the player was off the park and then was ushered onto the park. Or he wasn't even ushered onto the park, he just ran onto the park and got an advantage due to being injured almost. So I'm glad that was given offside. I'm sure once they saw those offside lines, they were like, just give it offside. We don't want a part of this.
I think that was definitely made up exactly to bail them out of a whole.
He might be offside. Yeah, he's definitely offside. I could. And can you blame them? Because it would have been a really, really difficult situation. Would sportsmanship have come into play? Would Sebastian Hoeneß have said, right, you can go and put the ball in the back of the net? I'm glad that never occurred, even though as a neutral, when you're watching those situations unfold, I seem to remember, I think it was Derby Leeds a few years ago with Marcelo Bielsa and Frank Lampard. Yeah. There was all sorts of shenanigans going on with regard to that. I wasn't a neutral last night. I was wanting that goal to be disallowed. Thankfully, the lines were drawn rather hastily, but they were drawn, and the man was given offside, so no damage done in that regard. In terms of other potential selection quandaries that Martin O'Neill has, is Luke McCowan in there as well with his performance last night? I thought not just his goal, which was well taken, a good play from Yang into Adamu, good layoff by Adamu into Luke McCowan, and a lovely side-footed finish past the goalkeeper. I thought not just his goal, but his overall play, his transitional play in getting from midfield to attack was really handy for Celtic last night. Has he staked his claim? I know he's been quite passionate, you could say, in the media following his performance, which you would expect from Luke McCowan, if we're being honest. Is he a player that's maybe staked a claim for Ibrox on Sunday?
Yeah, he has. I mean, as you said, took his goal fantastically well and had a decent game, linked really well with Adamu actually a few times, but I still don't think he'll feature at Ibrox. I don't think he'll start, but I think he'll have a role to play. So yeah, so I think listen, that's why the manager gets paid the big bucks, isn't he, to make these kind of calls. But I'm flooding that midfield, Ryan. I'm flooding it, and I think like last week, Callum plays, the Ox plays, and Nygren has to play because he scores goals. He doesn't do much else, but he scores goals, doesn't he? Going to need to score to beat Rangers. So, you know what I mean? So
for me, Tony, I just feel as if Celtic need to go for it in this game, and I think last week's result confirmed that against Hibs. You look at the way the league table is at the moment. Celtic need a win at Ibrox. Yeah. I just don't think a draw will do, because that just further helps. It assists Hearts on their way to potentially a league title if both Celtic and Rangers drop points. Celtic need to win a big game against Hearts or Rangers this season. They need to win all of their games essentially against Hearts and Rangers if they're to have a chance of retaining the Scottish Premiership title. So far, they've only drawn against Hearts in the league, and they've only won against Rangers in the Premier Sports Cup. They need to get 3 points on the board. They need to hinder one of these two teams, and that needs to start on Sunday. I agree with you that Celtic need to go for it potentially with two up top. I would maybe make the argument that Chavanchara and Adamu play up front together. That sort of little and large. You could play the two of them off each other. I thought Adamu did well for the assist for the goal. If you could add a tall, imposing presence to somebody who could maybe run off the ball, alongside Nygren, a guy that can float in and out of the game and sniff out a chance. There's opportunity for players there to become heroes. But my issue with Iheanacho is his fitness, to be honest with you. And we saw him come on last night, but he didn't feature against Hibs.
I tell you what, when the ball goes up, it'll stick. Doesn't he stick when Chavanchara's there? Sorry. You've got to do better for me. He's got to be more of a nuisance. I said before, he's got to be more Sutton-like. And I just think sometimes when you're not doing those things, then you're what are you contributing? Iheanacho can hold the ball up and can play people in. I thought Adamo's hold-up play last night was very good as well. Played Cowan in lovely for the goal. So maybe Iheanacho and Adamu up front. You know, if you're going with a two, I know I can see the sense in the big guy, wee guy combination. I see that all day long, but I need Shivanshara to. No, I need a bigger, better contribution. You know, because if you're not scoring and you're not running channels and you're not holding the ball up and you're getting involved in battles and wrestling and not winning those battles, then you know I'm looking and saying, what are you bringing to the party? What are you bringing to the table? And Ibrox is no place for coming out second best in your individual battle. If he plays, he has to be a pest. He's got to be a nuisance from the start, and his ball retention has to be, you know, A game ball retention, because it's no use putting it up there for it to come straight back at you. And you know they're going to have the crowd and everything in their favour. So you know, can it be a shrinking violet on Sunday? Got to get out there and give it everything you've got. Leave it all out there. And I think the manager is content that he might have a game plan to come up with, which is part of my column saying, right Celtic off at your peril and right Martin O'Neill off at your peril as well. I think Celtic's biggest concern, or the supporters' biggest concern on Sunday, and I hate to mention it, it's the officials, Ryan. That's, I think, the Celtic supporters' biggest concern. I don't think they're concerned about the team going there and if they play and possibly getting a result. I just think their biggest concern is John Beaton in the middle.
My worry when it comes to the officials, and I don't want to touch on this too much, to be honest with you, because it's always been my opinion that if Celtic are good enough, they'll win the game, regardless of who's officiating the game. But I want to see a balanced performance from the referee on Sunday. A referee that isn't overawed by the occasion, by the support and the ground, because I've seen that a couple of times already this season, where I feel, and this is just my own personal opinion on things, I feel that the referee can be slightly influenced by the home support into making certain decisions, you know, in the passion of it all, which is understandable. People are human at the end of the day, but I want the referee to have a balanced game, a fair game, and if that's the case, may the best team win between the two sides. As much as people don't want to hear that, let's hope that the best team comes out as winners, and hopefully that's Celtic. You were talking about about players not really making an impact at this present moment in time. By that token, Tony, should that mean, and this would have been unthinkable even earlier on this season, certainly last season for his exploits last campaign, should Daisen Maeda be on the bench for this game against Rangers? Because at the moment, I'm not seeing a lot from him at all. I'm not seeing the same defensive output. I'm not seeing the same lethal touch in front of goal. That's been missing all season, unfortunately, from Daisen Maeda. You could say, apart from a couple of nice wee spells at the start of the season, is he a player that needs to be benched on Sunday ahead of the big one?
And therein lieth the rub. Daisen Maeda is not the Daisen Maeda of last season or the Daisen Maeda of old. But in Celtic Rangers games, he's always had the hex over Tavernier, hasn't he? So, again, that's going to be the manager's biggest call. But if you're going on current form and if you're going on the yellow jersey, which he had last night, I'd be benching him, Ryan. He didn't do enough for me last night. And I hate to say that players have checked out the building and their heads elsewhere, but I think Maeda's slowly but surely playing like a player who believes his future is elsewhere. And again, I don't want to dwell on it. And if you're good enough, you will beat Rangers. But I make the point that every refereeing controversy that Celtic have been involved in, there's one protagonist, and it's John Beaton. And I'm staggered that he's been given this game, a game of this magnitude. Well, actually, I'm not staggered, but I'll go all Peter Gabriel, Steve Biko lyric on you, Ryan. And the eyes of the world are watching now. Watching now. We'll see it. We'll all see it if John Beaton is involved in another Celtic refereeing controversy. Because the eyes of the world are watching now. We always have been.
And the Tony, the temperature of officiating, the temperature surrounding the officiating this season is only going to continue to get cranked
Yeah.
up. You seen it last week. Every decision is going to be micro-analysed because of the fact that there's 3 teams, potentially 4, in the title race, and every decision that's made, whether that's on the pitch, whether it's VAR, can impact on a team's title credentials. So there's a lot of eyes on the officials at the moment. I don't envy them in the slightest for the pressure that they're going to be under. But you just want them to go and do their job effectively and competently. I'll be one of the first ones to come out and say the referee actually had a good game on Sunday, but unfortunately, I am already preset to the fact that something could happen in that game, and I'm just hoping that Celtic, under Martin O'Neill, they keep the head, they keep themselves in the game, and they come out there with all 3 points, because they do that, they come into the game against Aberdeen on Wednesday with a real chance to go to push real daylight between themselves and Rangers, who are the darlings of Scottish football at the moment for their resurgence under Danny Rowe. Celtic can sink them in 2 games. If they win their next 2 games, they can really go ahead of them in the title race. 6 points could make all the difference here in terms of making it, going from what could be a 4-man race to a 2-man race between Celtic and Hearts. That's got to be the aim for Celtic on Sunday, and fingers crossed that they can do that at a really difficult venue in Ibrox.
I'm always confident in the Martin O'Neill team playing Rangers, Ryan. I just want fairness. Don't want favours. Just fairness from the officials. I'll settle for that, and the chips land and fall where they may. But yeah, I've got no qualms about Martin O'Neill taking a team to Ibrox and Celtic turning up. So, as you say, it's got a week that could really shape your season, define it. Could blow it to smithereens as well, potentially. Although, even if they do lose and they beat Aberdeen, again, at Pretoria, a difficult game, they'll only be 2 points behind Rangers, depending on what happens with Hearts on Saturday as well. So, it's not over if they lose at Ibrox. It's going to be a bit more difficult. But listen, if there's one man that I've got every faith in, it's Martin O'Neill. And if Martin O'Neill can instill his belief into the players, then I don't think Celtic will be far away on Sunday. Let's put it that way. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the narrative leading up to it has led you to believe, yep, Celtic are a team bereft of real quality, bereft of real talent. They've not been playing particularly great, but, Ryan, they can still go to Ibrox and win. Rangers might be playing the better football. That's what I said the other week, and people were saying that Rangers were a better football team. I never actually said that. I said they were playing the better football. But that tell me in a game like Sunday that Celtic can't raise their game and beat them. They're no unbeatable. They're far from unbeatable. And I think a lot of it will come down to mentality and bottle and good old-fashioned belief. And I think Martin O'Neill has that in bucket loads, and I think that Celtic team that takes to the field, whatever permutation it is, will have that as well. They'll no fear at all going into Ibrox. Yep, I know all the dice is loaded in Rangers' favour, but listen, it's up to Celtic to rip all that narrative asunder. And part of my column, don't ever write Celtic off, go to Ibrox, especially with Martin O'Neill at the helm.
Yeah, before we finish off, Tony, if you want to point people towards that column that you put up that's available on the Celtic Way now, all about Martin O'Neill and how you shouldn't write off the veteran manager, should we say. He's only a couple of days off his 74th birthday, but he's still as sharp as ever. Was sharp with the media last night for sure. Very witty, very humorous as well, taking a lot of the pressure off of his players and and bringing it on himself, but in a good way, because he harnesses that pressure, and I think he's enjoying the pressure. So, Tori, I'll roll out the red carpet for you for your column today.
Well, basically, I'm making the point that, those of a certain vintage will remember Jock Stein famously saying only a fool would predict the outcome of an Old Firm game, and don't jump about and scream and shout. No such thing as the Old Firm. It was the Old Firm back then when Jockstein was saying it. So that's the premise of my column. I'm saying only a fool would try and predict Sunday, but we've already had predictions about Sunday. There seems to be this narrative that it's going to be a comfortable Rangers win, yada, yada, yada. And I'm making the point that if ever there was a manager tailor-made for these situations, it's Martin O'Neill, and that's why Steen's quip or adage still stands true today. You can never, only a fool would say Celtic are not going to win on Sunday. That's not blind faith and it's not blind optimism. It's through years of watching football and watching a manager, a special manager at the helm. And I can't predict how it's going to go on Sunday. Again, only a fool would do that as a great man, the legend that is Jockstein said. But I can predict that it's not going to be the landslide or runaway victory that some people from the other side of the city believe that it may well be, and that this is going to become a redress of the balance of power, and that Celtic are going to, all of a sudden, it's going to end all of Celtic's domestic dominance. So that was that. So that was channeling some Jockstein, channeling some Martin O'Neill. So it's on the website, guys. You want to have a read at that, you might enjoy it.
Yeah. Martin O'Neill's last stand in terms of going to Ibrox and his storied career. A little bit of a throwback as well. But hopefully, I mean, if you're talking about a one-sided game, fingers crossed it's Celtic. Celtic could come out with a comprehensive win. Could you imagine what that would do to the confidence levels going forward into that Aberdeen game?
Of course.
Listen, I think all we want is a positive result for Celtic, and the most positive result would be a win at Ibrox on Sunday. If they can do that, then they insert themselves again. It seems as if they've been out of the title race, then back in. They would firmly insert themselves into the title race. Hearts played before as well, so they've got that added pressure of Hearts potentially putting that scoreboard pressure that we spoke about onto Celtic and Rangers before the two even play. So you've got that to contend with.
Only effective controllables though, Ryan. You know what I mean? And you people saying that a draw would be a decent result, possibly, but Celtic only know how to play one way, especially at the home of your rivals. Got to go out and all out for the win. Lots of people take a draw now, possibly, but nah, not for me. I want to win. I always want to win, and don't care how they do it, but I'm confident in a man that is.
If Celtic go out to draw the game, they'll go and lose the game. That's teams that go out to draw games tend to not do so well, and that you've got to go out and play to win, and that's got to be the aim and objective for Celtic, is to go to Ibrox and come back with all 3 points. A lot of away games coming up. We've got Rangers, Aberdeen, Rangers. It's a tough schedule, but if there's anybody that can bring us through it,
I'll look at that, Ryan. But
Martin O'Neill, with all of his experience, enthusiasm, and passion.
I look at that schedule and I'm like, bring it on. Don't know about you, it's got my juices flowing. Don't care how many games we're playing away. Just bring it on. I want you to meet it head on. First one is Sunday, Rangers. Can't wait. Just, and let's go into battle, Ryan. There's a title to be retained here. And I think that brings the best out in the manager, and it'll bring the best out in the players. And you saw what it brought out in the supporters at Rugby Park and in Stuttgart last night. So, listen, I think everybody in the Celtic camp's up for it. Might not be saying that 2:00 on Sunday, but hey, I'm as confident and as full of bravado as they come right now, because as I say, I would never bet against a Martin O'Neill Celtic team, and also never write off Celtic when they've to string a consistent run together in order to win the title. It's been done before, especially when people think that, there's talk of people talking about Celtic finishing fourth, Motherwell all over Haughey, stuff like that. Brilliant, keep talking. I'm loving that. I'm just like, right, guys, be laser focused. And I don't think the manager will allow them to beat anything else. And yeah, I think Luke McCowan and Callum McGregor were a bit bullish last night, weren't they, with their statements? Personally, I wish they hadn't have said stuff like that, but I can get where they're coming from on it, because they probably think that or they know that they're a better team than maybe results and performances have showed, and they've maybe been stung a wee bit by some criticism. Well, there's only one way to bite back. Go and win at Ibrox on Sunday.
You're talking.
Yeah.
Do your talking
Do
on
your
the
talking
pitch.
there.
Essentially, back up what you've said in Stuttgart.
Correct.
Just finally, before we finish off, on Saturday, Hearts play Aberdeen at Tynecastle, and Motherwell. You've got to include Motherwell in all of this as well. They play Dundee United at Fir Park. So a win for Hearts and a win for Motherwell really puts the pressure on both Celtic and Rangers heading into that game. But there's already pressure on it. There's pressure on every Glasgow derby, regardless. There's no such thing as a dead rubber Glasgow derby. I will argue the point till the cows come home that there is no. It's a derby. It's bragging rights, but there's more to this one this season. Just in the context of this season. So that's what Celtic have got to face. Martin O'Neill will be speaking today, where he'll be talking about, the aftermath of the Stuttgart game, maybe some injury updates as well as the upcoming Glasgow derby. We'll be covering all of that on the Celtic Way. Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure being on with you this morning. Really enjoyed that chat. We've had plenty of off-field chat, on-field discussion. It's been a busy one, but an enjoyable one.
It's never dull or boring covering Celtic, is it, Ryan? Let's be honest.
No, it never is. That's the one joy about this, or one of the many joys, is that it's never boring when you're talking about Celtic. There's always something going on, positive or negative, and we thank each and every one of you for joining us to share in your views. I'm sorry that we couldn't bring up more comments today. It's just been one of those ones where the back and forth has been so good that we've just kept it going for the 46 minutes that we've been on. Thank you to the 600 or so people that have been on live with us. Thank you if you've made it this far on the pre-recorded video as well, or after the live is finished and you're catching up with the show. Thank you for joining us. Hit that subscribe button. Join us on the website too, on www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. We've plenty on the website ahead of the upcoming Glasgow derby on Sunday. We'll be back on Monday to dissect everything that goes on in the small matter of that fixture. Until then, Tony, thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure, as always.
And thank you everybody for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Cheers guys, and all the best.